Remember Joe Friday from the classic TV series Dragnet? His catchphrase was, "Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts." Poor old Joe. He'd probably never cut it in policing these days, what with all the political correctness infecting police forces. Police services. Yeah, you can't even call a police force anymore. It's a service now, like a dry cleaning shop, I guess. As for Detective Friday, it's not a good idea to stick to just the facts if those facts might be politically incorrect or insensitive to some. Exhibit A, just check out the RCMP's new Terrorism and Violent Extremism Awareness Guide. Now tell me, folks, when you think of terrorism and violent extremism, is there a particular group that springs to mind given the sheer amount of carnage the world over since 9/11? Oh, but no. The RCMP Terrorism and Violent Extremism Guide does not just focus on radical Islam. That might offend certain sensibilities. So it is that the RCMP notes that the guidebook also focuses on other terror groups hell-bent on death and destruction, such as the Ku Klux Klan and Anonymous, and, well, a whole bunch of other groups that can't even be defined as terrorist organizations. No, I'm serious. Here's what the Mounties had to say, quote, "We don't want people to think terrorism is only related to people who convert to Islam," end quote. No, of course not. Why, I tell you, sometimes I can't sleep at night thinking about some sleeper cell of Mormons in Utah who are scheming to blow up something real good. Still, it was perversely ironic that a few days after the RCMP Terrorism and Violent Extremism Awareness Guide was unveiled, that another study came along indicating that religious, aka Islamist, terrorism is the #1 terror concern in Canada today. Evidently, environmentalist causes were the main driver of Canadian terrorist incidents in the 1990s and the 2000s, but by 2010, terrorism in the name of religion had emerged as the frontrunner. And memo to the RCMP, this study, authored by the Canadian Network for Research on Terrorism, Security and Society, notes that all religious terrorism dating back to 2001 was, quote, motivated by jihadist beliefs. This list includes the 2010 Ottawa plot to conduct bombings for Al-Qaeda and the 2014 killings of Canadian Forces members by ISIL-inspired terrorists. As well, the declassified document notes that in Canada, Australia, the US, and Europe, the greatest threat comes from, quote, individuals inspired and directed by ISIL. So if this is indeed the case, and we know it is the case, then why is the RCMP wasting precious resources investigating, the FLQ or the Symbionese Liberation Army or some other phantom threat? And you know who should be the most offended by this PC nonsense? I would suggest it should be those Canadian Muslims who reject extremism and terrorism. After all, the single biggest victim group of Islamist terrorism is Muslims. So really, just who is the RCMP trying to protect from being offended? The Islamists themselves and their useful idiots on the left? As the saying goes, denial ain't just a river in Egypt. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey, if you like what you just saw, click subscribe below to never miss a Rebel video.